Hello and welcome. So, yes, we are here to talk about yet another flanker to the Goddess line. And this time, Burberry has launched the Parfum. Now, you guys may recall that we did have the original, we had the Eau de Parfum Intense, and now we have the Parfum. Now, all of these fragrances do come in the exact same bottle, but there is one way to tell the difference between one and the other. To start with, this new one actually says Parfum at the base here, like at the bottom. I'm hoping that the camera will capture it, but it does say Parfum. And I can also tell you that the juice is the darkest of the three. If we look at the OG, we will notice that this one has a juice that is a bit lighter than the Parfum. And then when we look at the Intense, we also see that it is darker than the OG, but a bit lighter than this new one. So that's the only way that I could really, tell the difference between one and the other. But at least this one now says Parfum, at the base of the bottle. But anyway, so today I'm going to go ahead and give you a detailed review of this fragrance. I have so much to tell you about it. And of course, I'm going to also compare it in detail to the original and to the Intense versions. But let's go ahead and get started because I have so much to say. But before we do so, if this is your first time here, I'm Arahi, and I'm your fragrance concierge because I'm totally committed to creating the best fragrance experience for you. I upload videos multiple times a week, and on this channel, we love to talk about all types of fragrances. So if that sounds like the type of content that you're interested in and like a good plan, then please consider subscribing, give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget, leave a comment. Let's go, fam. So let me just start by saying that I am finding that in each one of these goddess fragrances, the DNA is very much present. There may be slight tweaks to the notes and accords, but all in all, you are going to get the exact same DNA. And the differences, while not negligible, it just makes me wonder if it really justifies us picking up yet another bottle. Of course, I picked it up to review it for you, and I'm not saying that this one is not good, and we'll talk more about it. It is a lovely fragrance, and I do enjoy it. But again, I do question, do we really need to spend money on this one if you have any of the other two, and worse yet, if you have the other two? So this one opens very, very much like the Intense, right? It has a very present lavender note. Now, if you have been with me for a while and you did catch my detailed review of the Intense, you may recall that during that review, and I'll try to link it right up here, I kept warning you about the lavender, right? That the lavender was quite intense in the opening of the fragrance. Well, here the lavender is quite present and it is intense, but not as intense as the lavender that we found in the Intense version of this fragrance. Here, the opening is clearly about the lavender and the vanilla, because I'm going to tell you right now, the lavender and the vanilla are the stars of this new Parfum fragrance. Now, in case you're also wondering, in each one of these fragrances, if you are a goddess collector, you know that there's like a little tweak which is done by adding a couple of notes and accords. Well, in this one, in the Parfum, the tweak to the note structure, at least to the notes that they have shared with us, is that you do find the note of raspberry and a note of leather. So let's talk more about that. So after the opening where you find that lavender and the vanilla, which is really like the foundational DNA of this fragrance, regardless of which version you pick up, you are going to find a certain level of fruitiness. And the fruitiness is clear to my nose and on paper is coming from the note of raspberry. But that raspberry is not really a star in this fragrance. It's just a little bit of fruitiness that shows up. Now, following the appearance of the raspberry, you are going to find like midway in the olfactory journey that the vanilla does intensify and the fragrance does become a bit sweeter. But at the same time that the vanilla intensifies, you are going to start to pick up clearly on the note of leather. And that leather is coming in strong. It's not a smooth or demure leather. It's not screechy or anything like that, but it is definitely a very clear and present note of leather. The, raspberry is still there with the fruitiness, but it is very faint and in the background because once the leather comes in, it's almost like the leather wants to be the star of the fragrance right along with the lavender and the vanilla. But I'll tell you, the lavender and the vanilla in no moment, in no part of the olfactory journey or at dry down or throughout the wear of the fragrance do those two notes really give in and allow the leather to be the star. But the leather will continue to be very present, unmistakable. You are going to pick it up clearly. Now at the dry down, you are going to get a very vanilla-centric fragrance. There is no doubt that the vanilla is one of the stars of this fragrance. But at the dry down, the vanilla really does intensify quite a bit. And it still has that lavender presence there coupled with the vanilla, but the lavender calms down a bit, allowing the vanilla to shine more. All of this is going on with still that faint fruitiness in the background. At the dry down, I have to be honest, I'm no longer picking up on the raspberry. I am picking up on a faint fruitiness in the background. And at all this, what is very present at the dry down is that leather note. The leather is not dominant at the dry down, but it is very intense and present. It's not dominant because the original, I would say, DNA of the Goddess fragrances is very present at the dry down, which is really all about that very intense vanilla coupled with the lavender. The lavender is not screechy or as intense as in the opening, but the lavender is definitely present. And the leather, to me, it's almost like the vanilla has taken the lead and then the lavender and the leather are coupled together and play like second fiddle to the vanilla. And then, of course, in the background, that fruitiness that, that I've been speaking about. But at the dry down, I'm really not picking up on that raspberry at all. What I am picking is on the vanilla, the lavender, and definitely the leather. So I do have a couple of observations that I want to share with you before we jump into more details about this fragrance. So number one, this is a fragrance that to me is not a safe blind buy unless you are a leather note lover. If you love fragrances where the note of leather is very present and or dominant, then this is a fragrance that you're definitely going to enjoy. The other thing that I did want to tell you is I have heard so much about, well, this one is all about the raspberry, or now we have raspberry, it's going to make such a difference. Well, I'm here to tell you that to my nose, on paper, and on skin, I'm really at no point picking up on a juicy, sweet, and very realistic raspberry note. No, it's not synthetic either, but it's just not very juicy and sweet and realistic to my nose. It's just like a fruitiness that's always faint in the background. And, at some point of the olfactory journey, I did pick up on the raspberry, but again, it was not sweet or very realistic to my nose on paper or on skin. Now, if you were to ask me, okay, Arahi, are you trying to say that the raspberry comes across as synthetic, right? I don't think that it's really that the raspberry is coming through as synthetic. I think that what it is that the leather note is so present, bordering on dominant in this fragrance, that it kind of masks any juiciness or fruitiness that we could really, really enjoy stemming from the note of raspberry. The leather really, kind of takes over for the raspberry, because midway in the olfactory journey, you may recall that I did tell you that the raspberry comes in when the vanilla starts to intensify. But then almost immediately, as you approach the dry down, you are going to start to pick up on that leather note, and the leather note comes in, no joke, right? And from then on, the leather note and accord never changes to my nose or on paper. It is definitely present. So to me, when it comes to the parfum, the game changer note and accord is not the raspberry, which is what most of us were expecting. Here, it's really about the leather. This fragrance focuses on the note of leather. It does have that DNA that we've come to know as Goddess, which is vanilla and lavender. But at that, the leather, while not being dominant, it is quite present and intense. Again, I am telling you, if you are not a leather fragrances lover, this is not for you. If you are someone that does enjoy a leather note in a fragrance, then this is perfect. But otherwise, you're just not going to enjoy the fragrance. If you're just looking for that very vanillic goddess DNA, and you're just looking for that fruitiness, some of what some of us were expecting in this new one, you're not going to find it in this one, because this is more about that foundational DNA, again, with that added note of leather and faint fruitiness in the backdrop. So the other thing that I did want to bring to your attention is that, to me, this one, being that it has that note of leather and that it's not a demure note of leather, because I do have fragrances that have the note of leather and I can use them during the summer. But for me, this fragrance is really designed to transition us from like the summer into the fall, and it is perfectly suited for the seasons of fall, winter, and the beginning of spring. This is not a fragrance that I would pull on a very warm or hot day at all whatsoever. This is a fragrance that I think is best for the ages of 25 plus. And to me, this one is definitely more unisex than anything. I know that this is advertised as a ladies fragrance, but to me, this is a unisex fragrance that may lean a tad to the feminine side. But to the core, for me, this is truly a unisex fragrance. I don't pick up really on any oud or musk in this fragrance, and I think that you could dress it up or you could dress it down day and night during the right season. And I also can tell you that it does perform very, very well, because it gives me 8+ hours without having to overspray or respray. It does have a strong projection during the first, I would say, 90 minutes. After that, it does become a scent bubble for like an additional hour. And then after that, it does become a skin scent, but not very intimate, because this is quite intense. And I'll tell you, it's like a full day wear with no problem. So the performance here is quite solid. All right, so now let's go ahead and compare these three fragrances. To begin with, let me just say that the OG for me is an all year round fragrance that is truly feminine. I do not find this one to be unisex whatsoever. This is truly a feminine fragrance. Now, when it comes to the intense, I find that this fragrance is also suitable for all year, any season. But this one is more unisex and it does lean heavy to the feminine side. Now we have the parfum. And with the parfum, I can tell you that, as I said before, this is not an all year fragrance for me. This is more of like fall, spring, and winter. And it is definitely a fragrance that is unisex, maybe leaning a tad to the feminine side, but not more than that. So these three fragrances, when it comes to, seasons and otherwise, are quite different. Now, when it comes to the journey that you're going to experience with each fragrance, we also find considerable differences, because the OG is a fragrance that has a certain degree of airiness to it. It also has the note of cacao and the note of ginger, which does add to that bit of fresh spiciness that we all fell in love with from the beginning with the original. Now, when it comes to the intense, and as I told you during my review, this is a fragrance that has a very, very strong lavender note. The lavender here is the most intense of all three fragrances. And the opening is all about the lavender. The vanilla eventually does come in, and it comes in strong, becoming a very dominant note. But in the opening, this lavender makes quite the difference. Now, when it comes to the parfum, here you find that leather note, that leather slash suede note that really sets it apart from the other two. So that is something very, very different that you will find in the parfum. Now, here's the thing. While they all have that, goddess DNA that we've all fallen in love with for the most part, right? They do have their differences. And just to recap, the OG has an airiness that you do not find in the Intense and that you do not find in the Parfum. The Intense has a lavender that you do not find in the OG nor in the Parfum, because the lavender is quite realistic and very strong. What the Parfum is really about, in addition to the lavender and the vanilla that of course is the underlying DNA of Goddess, you are going to find that very present leather slash suede note. So all in all, these three fragrances are quite different. Do I think that it is redundant to pick up the Parfum if you already have the other two? At the end of the day, you are going to get the same, goddess DNA. You are going to get that underlying goddess scent. As soon as you spray this fragrance with leather or not, with fruitiness or not, you are going to know that you're wearing Burberry Goddess for sure. But I will tell you that the leather here does add a different spin to that DNA for sure, just like as the accentuated intensity of the lavender and the vanilla in the Intense does add a different spin to it. Just like the ginger, those citrusy notes and that degree of airiness that you find in the OG set it apart. So for me, this fragrance is not redundant if you own one or, the other or both previous releases in this line. It's really not redundant because the leather note does indeed set it apart. I personally am very happy that I picked up this fragrance, and I can tell you that I think this is a solid release. I don't know what else they're going to do because I think we've covered the bases now of everything, but you never know. All in all, I'm very happy with this fragrance, and I give it an 8.5 out of 10. All right, so we've reached the end of this review, and I hope that I was able to give you all of the information that you need in order to decide if this is a fragrance that you even want to try. I just have to tell you that while I do enjoy this fragrance, again, I don't think that this is a safe blind buy. I think that you need to try and make an effort to go in store or get yourself even better, like a small decant, and try it on skin, because this is a fragrance with quite a bit of character. I think many of you will enjoy it, but I also know that while not being a polarizing, I don't consider this to be a polarizing fragrance. This is also not a fragrance that everybody is going to enjoy because the note of leather can be quite overpowering. It's not the dominant note in the fragrance. It's still about the lavender and the vanilla, which is the, in my opinion, the original DNA of Goddess, but the leather note definitely makes its mark. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for hanging with me today. Let us know if you've tried the fragrance, if you sniffed it, if you picked it up. How do you feel about it? Are you experiencing any of what I share? And anyway, thank you so much for hanging with me today as always, and I will see you all in the next video.